I'm kind of blown away by how quality this Academy Awards was. I've made a point of grousing about the show for the last 5 or 6 years, and this felt unusual. I don't want to say it felt like 1997 or whatever we romanticize about the past, but it felt like a show very much in control and under control. And even if we knew that this was all leading towards the Oppenheimer win for Best Picture, the Christopher Nolan win for Best Director, the fact that Oppenheimer was going to win 7 awards tonight, there still was something kind of light on its foot about the production in general, kind of good sense of fun, but nothing as overindulgent and kind of drawn out and self-serious as we expect from the show, even though there were serious moments. So I came away just incredibly satisfied with the telecast.
It did feel in keeping with the year in movies, last year movies, which was great, right? And like a way better than average group of of nominees, Best Picture nominees, also Big Picture nominees. And like, obviously just a huge year at the movies, the strike notwithstanding. And, you know, movies are back. And it had that energy. And there was something that like everybody could grab onto at the ceremony and get invested in. So I don't know.
It was unusual. You know, we talked a little bit about how this show is meant to start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific this year, which is an hour earlier. It's also daylight savings time here in America. So a bit of an unusual thing. I was a little skeptical. You were very skeptical. I think now, having seen a telecast that was 3 hours and 17 or 18 minutes roughly, because the show started a little late, this seemed like a very smart choice. I feel like people on the East Coast who were, you know, able to go to bed by 10:30 and see the entire Academy Awards, they must be feeling great right now.
I think that's great. Everyone getting to go to bed, great, A+. Keeping the show on time, great, A+. We don't know how many people saw the first hour. You know, we do not currently have those numbers as of recording. I was talking to a friend yesterday who had great plans to like go watch the Academy Awards with her grandparents as she does every year. And I was like, by the way, they start at 4. And she was like, oh, I won't be there till 5:30. So we don't know whether everyone caught up. And Kimmel even had some jokes to that bit around 5:30 PST, 8:30 EST. But in terms of the last hour, and they saved a lot for the last hour, I think I'm Just Ken was like the perfect prime time. What is it, like 6:30 PST, 9:30 EST? You knew everyone was there. And then rolling in to In Memoriam and the big awards. They got most of it. So whether or not everyone saw the monologue, I hope they did. I thought the monologue was very funny.
I thought so too. Jimmy Kimmel, as we said last week on the show, probably the most reliable hand in hosting in all of television right now, did a very good job. I think actually his tradition of lightly mocking all of the movies played well in a year like this, where there was just a lot of sincere passion for the movies and there was a lot of positivity around it, that it actually made it for a very balanced show. And you know, there's also something about the way that he comes out and does the kind of interstitial bits that makes it just feel like you're at a party. And that's like a big part of the hosting job. And that's something that's been missing in the years where there were no hosts or when there were multiple hosts in the past. You know, these last couple of years, the show has started to feel more like how it did in the pre-COVID times when it was a show. It had somebody who was kind of holding our hand as we went through it. And it felt particularly helpful in a show that was moving so quickly. It felt like at the end of the show, actually, Kimmel was kind of surprised that they were done.
Right.
You know, he got to vamp for a minute or two near the end, which you never see from a host.
Yes. And also they did start 5 minutes late, which he noted. And you in particular were quite perturbed about that.
Well, just stop making such a big deal about starting early and then starting late. And like the red carpet is running into a 9-minute commercial. And they had just
like a lot of
flashes
and fancy feasts. Yeah.
And,
it was like the 5 commercials between the red carpet and when the show actually started were just like a very tough referendum on what ABC thinks its Oscars audience is, at least in that first hour.
A little scary.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We were also part of that demographic.
I mean, I'm closer to the geriatric set now than I was when I first started than I am to where I am now when I first started watching the Oscars.
Yeah.
So like, you know, that is the audience increasingly.
Yeah, that's
getting
fine.
Older.
That's fine. Anyway, but to the point about the pacing, I think they made a lot of decisions that you and I were like yelling at each other across the room through this show. One of the main things to me that worked really well, you mentioned Kimmel had interstitial bits and they were smart and short
Brief.
And pre-written. But the presenter bits were well chosen, I would say. And so they grouped a lot of categories. So you would present both best documentary short and best documentary together, or I believe costume design and production design were grouped together. Well, no, actually, I think costume design was by itself because that was John Cena, you know? And when you've got the goods, literally, in that case, like you should go with it. But for the most part, there was like efficiency in how they were doing the below the line categories. And then they only let the presenters who could actually do comedy try to do comedy, you know? And things like just didn't roam on and on and on as they sometimes can do in these situations.
Yeah, so it made for an unusually brisk and fun show, and a handful of critical surprises. You know, as I said, Oppenheimer has been tabbed to win Best Picture for months and months and months. Same for Nolan, no surprises there. Something started happening at the beginning of the show that I think is really interesting. You know, I think the biggest quote-unquote surprise of the night was Emma Stone beating Lily Gladstone for Best Actress, which wasn't stunning per se since they had been splitting most of the way across the precursors.
That was a very close race.
It was.
And we didn't know what was going to happen, and we tried to read the tea leaves, but it could have gone either way.
So we saw, for example, that Lily Gladstone won at SAG and Emma Stone won at the BAFTAs. That's interesting to me because when we were watching the show, something started happening in terms of the below-the-line awards. The first one that happened that really jumped out to me was Best Makeup and Hairstyling going to Poor Things. Maestro was favored for months. Kazuhiro has already been awarded twice in that category. The work that he did in that movie is amazing. Maestro might not be able to be recognized in any other category if they don't win there. And in fact, that award went to Poor Things, which not a lot of people had that are in the predictions game. And it started...
Neither you nor I had it.
Neither you nor I had it. And we can say right now, you defeated me in our predictions.
Yes.
I think 18-17 out of 23 this year.
Right, okay.
However, I did defeat you in
I lost the big bet.
So we'll get into the details of that later on. But hey, you know, a night for democracy. We can share in these victories.
I really would have preferred to win the big bet.
Oh, interesting. Well, now I really have to make it, you know, onerous on you.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, when that makeup and hairstyling award happened, I said it to you in the room. I was like, that's weird. I wonder what that means for Emma Stone versus Lily Gladstone. And then a few other awards happened, production design and costume design. Some people thought maybe Barbie could be awarded in those categories.
We didn't,
but some people did. And in fact, they went to Poor Things. And then the big one to me was Best Sound. When Best Sound went to the Zone of Interest, which is a very unusual and I thought a very smart and worthy choice for an award like that, I think it confirmed a sense of internationalism in the Academy now that feels very, very strong.
You forgot one, which was also Boy and the Heron over Spider-Man versus Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
Correct. You
okay,
got it.
There we go.
You got it.
And you and I, even when doing the predictions, you did pick Zone of Interest for sound.
I did.
I had it written in my document and then went and deleted it and wrote Oppenheimer instead, which I have been thinking about since that happened.
You chickened out.
I know, but we even in that predictions podcast, which I hope people listen to rather than just copying our sheets on the day of, okay? We work hard, all right? We identified that was like one of the flex votes. And I even remember you saying, like, I'm being inconsistent. If I'm going to do Zone of Interest and sound, I should also do Boy and the Heron in animated feature.
I screwed that up.
Well, it's okay. Yeah, but it does really, you're right to say that all of those awards kind of signaled, okay, the much discussed international voting body is once again just flexing its muscles.
It's a very complicated thing. On the one hand, I think it's been amazing for the Academy Awards to become more international, to shine a light on international filmmakers. We saw it probably most profoundly when Parasite won Best Picture in 2019. That was a great moment. I think Miyazaki winning his second Academy Award and not showing up again, fantastic moment. I do think that there's something interesting going on where the Academy may quietly, in a way that they would never admit, may have overcorrected slightly in the way that they've changed their voting body. Maybe this is ultimately what they wanted to happen. But now the award show is recognizing world cinema, which is great, but it is recognizing Hollywood a little bit less and a little bit less. For example, Maestro shut out this year. Killers of the Flower Moon also shut out this year. Now, Oppenheimer, what could be a bigger Hollywood movie than Oppenheimer, which ran the table? But also, Christopher Nolan is also a British filmmaker in addition to being an American filmmaker. And so when you look at the slate of winners, non-acting category, it's a lot of international films. It's a lot of films that are, filmmakers who were not born in America. Maybe this was a necessary evolution as the world became tighter together, as everything became more accessible. It's easier to watch older foreign films now. It's easier to connect to other film fans around the world. So there's something interesting about the fact, but it now feels a little bit like if there was like a rules change in a sport and the Hall of Fame changed somehow, like the Academy has not historically adequately recognized world cinema. Sometimes it does, it fits and starts in the 70s.
Right.
But now when you look at what they're doing, which is great, Anatomy of a Fall, Zone of Interest, Boy and the Heron, these are amazing films. But it now feels like there's like an inconsistency across its history, which I guess is relevant because every decade gets a new feeling and a new evolution. But I can't help but notice that the Emma Stone win, which is of course an American actor, but Yorgos Lanthimos, a European filmmaker, just feels like an official setting of this new era of the Academy Awards.